Having a night in and wanting to watch a good sapphic film? In no particular order, here is my totally subjective top 20 list of lesbian and women love women films that I have enjoyed, along with a few honourable mentions. While a couple of them include a dead lesbian, and though not all have a happily ever after ending, they are definitely movies worth checking out. So, let's get started. First up is Kyss Mig, a charming love story from Sweden about two women who are about to become stepsisters. Following the engagement of their parents, they are thrown together and a tender romance develops. While Frida is out, Mia is engaged to be married and struggles with understanding her feelings. The performances are excellent, the chemistry spot on, beautiful cinematography, and one that'll leave you feeling uplifted. Fire. The first of a trilogy of Fire, Earth and Water by the respected filmmaker Deepa Mehta, this indie feature created such waves in India that it was banned from movie theatres and incited protests back in the mid-90s. Fire explores the story of Radha, who has an arranged marriage to one of two brothers. As she settles into her monotonous new life, she is drawn to the other brother's wife and they start a romance. The two leads turn out a subtle but convincing performance with lovely chemistry, and the film uses Hindu iconography to explore the lesbian themes in an uplifting and powerful way. Elena Undone. Elena Undone is loosely based on the real story of the writer-director Nicole Kahn, who has also directed the lesbian films Clear of the Moon and A Perfect Ending, and her partner, Marina Rice Bader, who founded Soul Kiss Films, has been responsible for films like Raven's Touch and Anatomy of a Love Scene. Elena Undone looks at the instant connection that Elena, a minister's wife, feels when she sees the writer Peyton. Convincing performances from the leads elevate what would otherwise have been a mediocre script, and a Hallmark-like feel to somehow burrow itself into my heart. They also happen to have the longest screen kiss, coming in at a whopping 3 minutes and 24 seconds, which somehow doesn't feel too long, and for this reason alone, you should watch this film. Madchen in Uniform. Jumping back in time, Madchen in Uniform, or Girls in Uniform, follows the story of Manuela, who is sent to a rigidly disciplined boarding school by her aunt. Miss von Bernberg is the only teacher to show her sympathy, for which Manuela develops an infatuation. It expresses the turmoil of adolescence, of awakening desires, and that feeling that many a baby gay experiences of wanting that one special teacher to return their affections. There is a 1931 and a 1958 version. My personal favorite is the 1958 one. Vintage lesbians, a female Romeo. What is there not to love? The Children's Hour. Based on the true story, Audrey Hepburn as Karen and Shirley MacLaine as Martha play two school teachers who open a private school for girls. Among their students is the spoilt and conniving Mary who, angry at her teachers, accuses them of being lesbians, which is picked up by the media and proceeds to destroy their lives. And while the rumours appear to be unfounded, okay, so major spoiler here, so jump to the next section if you want to keep this a surprise, it seems that Martha has harboured feelings for Karen. The tension of this film, good script, and impressive coming out speech by Shirley. Side note, neither Shirley or Audrey ever talked about this coming out speech, which boggles the mind since that was what the film pivoted on, but that has earned it a spot on my list. Carol. Continuing with the vintage lesbians, but made in more recent times, this is no doubt an unsurprising entry on my very subjective top 20 list. Based on the classic book The Price of Salt, which was groundbreaking for having a happy-ish ending, it follows Thérèse, who meets the glamorous and mysterious Carol. They are drawn together and begin a relationship which is exposed by Carol's husband, who threatens to use it for custody of their daughter. Beautifully acted by two powerhouse actresses, beautifully scripted and shot, Carol captures the relationship of these two women with elegance and artistry. The Secrets. Naomi goes to a Jewish seminary school for women in a bid to put off being married. She befriends Michelle, with whom she embarks on a journey for freedom in a repressive Orthodox culture that sees the two girls grow close. It's a moody film with beautiful visuals and provides a fascinating insight into the Orthodox faith, told from the point of view of a courageous heroine as she uncovers her sexuality. The Hours. This Academy Award-winning, star-studded psychological drama is based off the Pulitzer Prize-winning novel. It looks at three women from different generations linked by the novel Mrs. Dalloway. Each story is just a little gay. One story looks at Virginia Woolf's struggle with mental illness, the second a 1950s wife who is straining at the constraints of an unhappy marriage, and the last follows Clarissa as she prepares a party for her ex-lover. Award-winning performances, textured themes, and a faithful adaptation makes this a moving movie, well worth getting a spot on your to-watch list. Freeheld. Shortly after Elliot Page came out and started playing all the gay characters, she and Julianne Moore paired up in a true love story of Laurel Hester's fight to get her pension transferred to her domestic partner when she is diagnosed with terminal cancer in a landmark case. I didn't expect to enjoy the movie as much as I did, but I have to admit I did get a bit teary, in no small part due to the beautiful performances by the two leads. Fingersmith. Another book adaptation by the rightly popular Sarah Waters. Another entry with vintage lesbians. This miniseries is pretty much a classic in my mind. Sue, an orphan brought up in rather unsavory society, is enlisted to help defraud an heiress of her fortune by posing as her maid and companion. Only things are not as they seem, and to complicate things further, the two girls find themselves having the feels. What ensues is a fantastic story with all the drama. Tru Love. Tru is something of a womanizer with a boatload of baggage who meets the mother of her friend. They are drawn together, much to her friend's dismay, who tries to sabotage the relationship. It has the indie feel, and on the surface wasn't something that I thought that I would like, but as the movie progressed, I found myself drawn in, and by the end I was moved, by which I mean I cried. Booksmart. This coming-of-age comedy is not so much a love story, but more about the friendship between two senior high school students, one of which is out, and their attempt to end their high school career with a bang, which results in charming, witty, and hilarious escapades. Excellent script, excellent performances, a total feel-good movie with a good amount of queerness. It's time you won't regret spending. Portrait of a Woman on Fire. Okay, so I'm just now realizing how much I love the vintage lesbians, because here is another entry. A painter is hired to paint a portrait of a young woman that will be used to marry her off, only she has to study her subject surreptitiously. Secluded away in a manor, the women draw together over the course of the week. What I like about this film is just how feminine it is, and what I mean by that is that there is a total lack of the male gaze, and in fact there aren't even any men in the movie, which alone makes it a rare film. It's also written and directed by the lesbian Céline Sciamma and stars her ex-partner Adèle Haenel, who was also in the coming-of-age movie Water Lilies, also a film worth checking out. Mulholland Drive. Probably David Lynch's most celebrated film, this neo-noir psychological thriller blurs the lines between reality and dream. A young woman goes to Hollywood in search of fame, and after befriending a woman who has lost her memory, becomes embroiled in the mystery of who this woman is, with increasingly disturbing turns. Maybe it's because it was one of the first films I ever saw with queer women in it, I still remember being compelled by the story despite the tragic end. Pariah. This film follows the journey of Alike as she comes to terms with being queer and butch, and the pressure that she faces from her family to conform to feminine stereotypes. As their fear around her orientation escalates, Alike is forced to make an important decision about her future. It's a film that shows the familial pressure that many queer people have to live with, and the choices that sometimes need to be made in order to be who they are. Appropriate behaviour. Moving into lighter fare, Appropriate Behaviour takes a quirky look at the fallout of when Sharon splits from her girlfriend, which sees her unable to let go in spite of dating someone else. It also deals with coming out to her Persian family as bisexual. This is Desiree Akhavan's feature debut, which she has impressively written, directed and starred in, and is overall a delightful, well-crafted script that deserves a gander. Saving Face. It follows the story of Will, a closeted doctor whose family is wanting to set her up, but instead she keeps running into Vivian and they start a relationship which quickly hits the rocks with her inability to acknowledge their relationship publicly. It's a lovely feel-good film, and it's one of only a few films that has that real rom-com feel, and it is a must-see. Boy Meets Girl. This is another rom-com entry which follows the story of Ricky living in a small town, which makes finding love tough, especially as a bisexual transgendered woman. When a new girl comes to town, they strike up a relationship, but there is also her best friend of 15 years that is developing feelings for her. What makes this film a winner, in my opinion, is the charm that the actress Michelle Hendley brings to the role, and it is refreshing to see such a light-hearted, heartwarming film with a bi-transgendered woman at the centre. BFFs. Best friend Kat and Samantha end up at a couple's weekend workshop when Kat is gifted the retreat by her mother to help her repair her relationship with her ex-boyfriend. Wanting nothing more than a couple of days of relaxation, the two women find themselves having to pretend to be a couple in order to cash in the gift, and unexpectedly begin to explore feelings for each other. This light-hearted comedy manages to hit all the good spots with some great comedic moments, excellent performances, and the tension of the are they, aren't they into each other sustains the script beautifully. Imagine Me and You. This is pretty much a classic rom-com mainstay for lesbian films, where Rachel crosses gazes with her florist Luce as she walks down the aisle, and there is an immediate connection. Through various typical rom-com tropes, they're drawn together and their attraction grows, complicated, of course, by the fact that Rachel is newly married to a charming man. While I'm not totally sold on the chemistry between the leads, this is a solid film that I find I enjoy more and more every time that I see it. I also wanted to make honourable mentions of the following films that I think are also worth checking out: Tipping the Velvet, Grey Matters, Life Partners, Tell It to the Bees, and Ek Ladki Ko Dekha To Aisa Laga. There are, of course, many more films that could have made it onto my list. What ones did I miss that you think should have been mentioned? Comment below. If you like this kind of content, like and subscribe. Until next time, lady lovers.